All right, let's talk about something we all live with every single day, our digital lives. We're going to dive into how we create our online identities, the psychology that makes us act differently online, and the unbelievably real, multi-billion-dollar economies that are being built entirely inside these virtual worlds.
So, let me just ask you something straight up. Who are you online? Seriously, is it the exact same person your friends and family hang out with in the real world? Or is it someone a little bit different? Chances are there's at least some kind of gap between your physical self and your digital one.
And you know, this question matters more than ever. The digital revolution has completely changed how we live. We're on Slack and Zoom for work, we're scrolling through social media, we're getting lost in these massive online games. These aren't just websites we pop into anymore. They're places where we spend a huge chunk of our lives. And this whole shift has essentially created what you could call our second lives online. It's a brand new stage where the rules for who we are and how we present ourselves are just totally different.
I mean, think about it. In the real world, your identity is pretty much set. But online, you can be anyone or anything. These digital spaces let us experiment, explore, and even completely reinvent ourselves in ways that are just impossible offline. And that's not just a cool feature. It's at the very heart of what it means to live in a virtual world.
So, what's going on in our heads when this happens? Well, let's call it the digital mask effect. It's like when we go online, we often put on a kind of mask, and that mask can seriously change the way we behave.
Now, the official academic term for this is identity dissociation. It sounds a little complicated, but all it really means is that we tend to separate or kind of distort a real-world identity when we're in these digital environments. Understanding this one idea is the key to figuring out why we act so differently online.
And the difference is huge. See, in the real world, our behavior is shaped by social norms, by immediate consequences. But online, things like anonymity and the fact that you can't see someone's body language or hear their tone of voice, that completely changes the game.
Researchers have pointed to a couple of key things going on. First, you've got the online disinhibition effect, which is a fancy way of saying that being anonymous makes us feel freer to say and do stuff we normally wouldn't. Then there's the Proteus effect, and this is wild. It's the idea that our virtual avatars can actually influence our real-world behavior. Seriously, studies have shown that if your avatar is, say, tall and good-looking, you might actually act more confident, not just in the game, but even after you've logged off.
But, and this is a big but, this dissociation has a dark side. It can really open the door to some pretty nasty behavior. The same anonymity that lets us explore who we are can also make it easier for people to engage in cyberbullying, fraud, and spreading misinformation. When we feel disconnected from our real selves, it's just easier to feel less responsible for what we do online. But the story doesn't stop with psychology, not even close. Because when you get millions of these digital selves together in one place, they don't just interact. They build stuff, they create value, and that has become the foundation for something absolutely massive, entirely new virtual economies. Just take a look at this number, 18 million US dollars. And get this, that was way back in 2014. That was the estimated value of the player-run economy in just one online game, EVE Online. It's proof that what happens in these virtual spaces has very, very real economic weight. And a virtual economy isn't just play money. It's a living, breathing system with real supply and demand, where people are trading virtual goods. You know, people might jump in for fun, but before they know it, they're part of these surprisingly complex markets.
So how does a bunch of pixels end up having real-world value? It's a pretty fascinating process, actually. First, players put in the time and effort, sometimes hundreds of hours, to get items in a game. Then, those items become valuable because they're rare or really useful. And finally, people start trading them on secondary markets outside the game for actual real-world cash.
And this secondary market, it absolutely exploded. Back in 2004, economists figured it was worth over $100 million. Okay, impressive. But just 3 years later, by 2007, some were saying that number was closer to $2 billion. This isn't some niche hobby anymore, it's a full-blown global industry.
Of course, whenever you have billions of dollars changing hands, you're going to run into some very real-world problems. And that brings us to the massive challenge of trying to create rules for these new virtual worlds.
The complexity here is just staggering. You've got virtual crime,
theft and scams that cost players thousands of real dollars. You've got economic problems like mudflation, which is basically hyperinflation, where the market gets flooded with virtual currency, making everyone's savings worthless. And of course, black markets pop up everywhere to get around the official rules.
For governments, this is a complete regulatory nightmare. I mean, should you have to pay income tax on the sale of a virtual sword? And what about game mechanics like loot boxes, where you pay for a random chance at an item? Is that gambling? These are incredibly tough legal questions that countries all over the world are just now starting to figure out.
And what's really interesting is that even the game developers themselves can't agree on what to do. You've got companies like Blizzard, who for years strictly banned any real money trading because they wanted to protect the fantasy. But then you have other developers who just lean right into it, building their own official marketplaces to control and profit from the whole thing. There's just no easy answer.
So it all leaves us with this one final, really powerful question. Our digital lives and our physical lives are merging more and more every single day. The masks we wear online are changing how we act in real life, and the economies we're building in these virtual worlds are having a huge, tangible impact. The question we have to ask ourselves isn't just about games anymore. It's about what kind of hybrid society we're all building together.